Promise no one else holds them accountable. Promise no one else holds them accountable for. It happens quietly. Sometimes in the morning, when they decide how the day will begin. Sometimes at night, when they promise themselves that tomorrow will be different. I'll wake up earlier tomorrow. I'll start exercising this week. I'll stop wasting time. I'll finally work on the things that matter. These promises are rarely dramatic. They don't involve contracts or witnesses, and because of that, they often feel easy to break. No one will notice. No one will complain. Life simply moves on. But something important happens every time one of those promises is broken. Your mind notices. The human brain is constantly learning who you are through your behavior. Every action sends a message. When you follow through on something difficult, your mind learns that your word has meaning. When you repeatedly abandon the commitments you make to yourself, your mind learns something else. It learns that your promises are optional. This is where many people lose something extremely valuable without realizing it. They lose trust in themselves. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly. Each time they postpone something important. Each time they say they will change tomorrow. Each time they negotiate with the habits that keep them stuck. Over time, this pattern creates a quiet frustration. People begin doubting their own intentions. They hesitate before setting goals. They wonder why confidence feels difficult to build. But confidence is not created by motivation. It is created by evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that when you say you will do something, you follow through. This is the quiet power of keeping promises to yourself. It does not require dramatic effort. It does not require perfect discipline. It begins with something much smaller: integrity. The decision to treat your own word with the same seriousness you would give to a promise made to someone you respect. Because the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship in your life. It determines how you work, how you handle difficulty, how you pursue the future you want. And that relationship is strengthened or weakened every day by the promises you keep or abandon. This audiobook is about rebuilding that trust, about understanding why people struggle to follow through with their own intentions, and more importantly, about learning how to create a life where your actions and your promises begin to align. Because when that alignment happens, something powerful changes. You stop relying on motivation. You stop questioning your ability to improve. You begin living with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing something simple. You can trust yourself. And that trust can change everything. Part 1. Why we break promises to ourselves. Most people believe their biggest challenge in life is discipline. They think the reason they struggle to improve their lives is because they lack motivation, willpower, or energy. But the real issue is often much simpler. It is the habit of quietly breaking promises to themselves. Think about how often this happens in ordinary life. You promise yourself you will wake up earlier tomorrow. You promise yourself you will start exercising. You promise yourself you will stop spending so much time on distractions and begin focusing on what truly matters. In that moment, you mean it. Your intention is sincere. But when the moment arrives to act on that promise, something inside your mind begins negotiating. You're tired today. You deserve a break. You can start tomorrow instead. These thoughts feel reasonable. They feel kind. But over time, they create a pattern that quietly damages something important: your relationship with yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your mind registers the inconsistency. The brain is constantly gathering evidence about who you are, not from what you say, but from what you repeatedly do. If your actions show that your commitments can be postponed whenever life becomes uncomfortable, your mind begins to believe that your words have very little weight. This is where many people unknowingly weaken their own confidence. They want to trust themselves, but their daily behavior tells a different story. Imagine promising a close friend that you would help them with something important, and then repeatedly canceling or postponing that promise. Eventually, that friend would stop relying on you. They would begin expecting disappointment. The same process happens internally when we repeatedly abandon our own commitments. We begin doubting ourselves, not because we are incapable, but because we have trained our mind to expect inconsistency. This is why many people feel frustrated with their lives even when they genuinely want to improve. They are not fighting a lack of potential. They are fighting the consequences of broken self-trust. But the encouraging truth is that this pattern can be reversed. Self-trust is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And it is built the same way trust is built in any relationship, through reliability, through small promises that are consistently kept. The goal is not to suddenly transform every area of your life. The goal is to begin proving to yourself that your word matters. Choose one promise that is realistic and meaningful. It might be waking up at a consistent time. It might be reading 10 pages of a book every day. It might be walking for 20 minutes to improve your health. The specific habit is not as important as the consistency behind it. Because every time you follow through, you send a new message to your mind. You prove that your commitments have weight. And slowly, something powerful begins to happen. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to improve. You begin seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That shift in identity is where real change begins. And it starts with something quiet, a single promise kept, then another, and another, until the person you are becoming begins to feel stronger, more dependable, and more aligned with the life you truly want to build. Part 2. How self-trust quietly transforms your life. Once you begin keeping promises to yourself, something subtle begins to change. At first, the changes seem small. You wake up when you said you would. You follow through on a task you planned the night before. You complete something that once would have been postponed. No one else may notice these moments, but your mind does. Every time you follow through on a commitment, your brain gathers a new piece of evidence that you are someone who can be trusted. This may sound simple, but the effect is powerful, because self-trust quietly shapes how you approach the rest of your life. When people do not trust themselves, they often avoid setting meaningful goals. Deep down, they fear disappointment. They have promised themselves change before, and those promises slowly faded. So they begin lowering their expectations. They tell themselves they will try later, or they settle for a life that feels smaller than what they once imagined. But when self-trust begins to grow, the opposite happens. You begin setting higher standards for yourself. Not because you suddenly feel perfect or motivated all the time, but because you know something important. You know you can rely on yourself to follow through. This quiet confidence affects many parts of life. It changes how you approach work. Instead of waiting for inspiration, you begin when the task needs to be done. It changes how you handle difficulty. Instead of avoiding challenges, you begin facing them directly. It even changes how you relate to others. When you trust yourself, your words become more thoughtful, and your commitments become more meaningful. People sense reliability in you, and reliability builds stronger relationships. But perhaps the most important change happens internally. You begin experiencing a greater sense of peace. Many people live with a quiet tension in their mind. They constantly feel behind. They carry unfinished plans and postponed goals. Their thoughts circle around what they should be doing, but are not. This creates stress that slowly drains energy and focus. Keeping promises to yourself reduces that tension. When you say you will do something and you actually do it, the mental weight disappears. Your mind becomes clearer. You move through the day with less internal conflict. Instead of negotiating with yourself, you simply act according to the standards you have chosen. And over time, this creates something that many people deeply desire. A life that feels more organized, more intentional, and more aligned with your values. It is important to understand that this process does not require perfection. Everyone misses a commitment occasionally. Everyone has days when energy is low. What matters is not perfection. What matters is returning to your standards, returning to the habit of honoring your word. Because every time you come back to that practice, you reinforce the most important message your mind can learn: that your actions and your intentions are beginning to align. And when that alignment grows stronger, the life you are building begins to feel more stable, more purposeful, and far more fulfilling. Part 3. The life that grows from self-respect. There is a quiet moment in every person's life when something begins to shift. It doesn't happen because of a dramatic breakthrough. It happens because of consistency, because of the simple decision to treat your own word with respect. When you keep promises to yourself, you begin strengthening something deeper than discipline. You strengthen self-respect. Self-respect is not created through praise or recognition. It grows through the quiet awareness that your actions reflect your values. When you say you will do something and you follow through, you begin to feel aligned with yourself. Your thoughts and actions start moving in the same direction. That alignment creates a sense of inner stability that many people search for, but rarely understand. People often chase happiness through external things: a new achievement, a different job, more recognition, more comfort. But lasting happiness is rarely built that way. It grows from the inside. It grows from knowing that you are living according to the standards that matter to you. And one of the most powerful standards you can practice is honoring the commitments you make to yourself. Because the promises you keep quietly shape the kind of person you become. A person who keeps promises to themselves becomes someone others can rely on. They become someone who finishes what they begin, someone who handles responsibility with care. But more importantly, they become someone who trusts their own decisions. This trust removes a great deal of confusion from life. Many people spend years questioning themselves. They wonder whether they have the discipline to pursue their goals. They hesitate before starting something meaningful because they fear they may abandon it later. But when you develop the habit of keeping promises to yourself, that hesitation begins to fade. You begin approaching life with greater clarity. You trust your ability to begin something and continue moving forward. That trust creates momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. When your actions consistently align with your intentions, progress becomes natural. You begin making healthier decisions. You become more focused on what truly matters. Your relationships improve because your reliability becomes visible to others. Even small areas of life begin to change. Your daily routines become more intentional. Your time becomes more valuable. Your energy becomes less scattered. Over time, these small changes accumulate into something larger. a life that feels calmer, more organized, more meaningful. And most importantly, a life where you feel proud of the person you are becoming. The quiet power of keeping promises to yourself is not about perfection. It is about integrity. The willingness to treat your own commitments with the same seriousness you would give to a promise made to someone you deeply respect. When you begin living this way, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing confidence. Confidence grows naturally from the evidence you create through your actions. You stop waiting for motivation. Your habits begin carrying you forward. And slowly, the relationship you have with yourself becomes stronger than the doubts that once held you back. This is the foundation of a good life. A life where your actions reflect your values. A life where your standards guide your decisions. And a life where the promises you make to yourself and to others become the quiet structure that supports your happiness and the happiness of those around you. The promise that changes your life. Before this audiobook ends, pause for a moment, not to relax, but to think honestly about something simple. What kind of relationship do you currently have with yourself? Because long before we build trust with others, we build trust or distrust within our own mind. Every day we make quiet promises to ourselves, promises about the kind of life we want to live, promises about the habits we want to change, promises about the person we hope to become. And every time one of those promises is broken, something small but important happens. Our mind begins to question our own word. It begins to doubt whether our intentions will actually turn into action. That doubt slowly weakens confidence, not because we lack potential, but because we have not yet proven to ourselves that we can be relied upon. The good news is that this pattern can change at any moment, not through a dramatic transformation, but through a single decision. The decision that your word matters, even when no one else is listening, even when no one else will ever know. Because the promises you make to yourself shape the kind of person you become. They determine whether your life slowly drifts or steadily grows. They determine whether your days are controlled by distraction or guided by intention. And they determine whether the future you imagine becomes something real. You do not need to change everything tonight. You do not need to create a perfect system. You only need to begin with one promise, one commitment that you will honor. Maybe it is waking up a little earlier tomorrow. Maybe it is spending time improving your health. Maybe it is protecting 1 hour each day for something meaningful. Choose something small enough that you can keep it. Then, keep it. Because every time you follow through, something powerful happens. You rebuild trust with yourself. And once that trust begins to grow, everything else becomes easier. Goals feel more realistic. Discipline feels more natural. Your mind becomes calmer because it knows your actions will follow your intentions. That quiet confidence changes how you move through life. It changes how you approach challenges, and it changes how the people around you experience your presence. Because when a person honors their own word, they become someone others can rely on as well. And reliability is one of the most valuable qualities a person can develop. So, before you move on with your day, ask yourself one simple question. What is one promise I will keep to myself tomorrow? Not 10, just 1. Keep that promise. Then keep the next one, and the next. Because over time, those small promises will shape something far greater than a single habit. They will shape the person you become. And that person will quietly build a life of trust, stability, and purpose, both for yourself and for the people who share that life with you.